So let's take a look at this draw event real quick. So to begin with, I probably want to have a loop that goes through, calculates the forces, updates coordinates, so the position of each of these objects. Later on, I'll want to check for collisions and do that in elastic collision. As things go off the screen, it turns out that it's really hard to be able to see them, so I'm going to have a check to see if I need to zoom, like recenter the screen or zoom out or anything like that. And then I'm going to draw all of my objects. Now, we've done a whole bunch of typing here, and we haven't seen anything actually happen, so let's do the draw objects part first, because that seems like something that will be more visually appealing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something called a function. So a function is a piece of code where you create it outside of the main setup or draw areas, and it's going to do some specialized task that you can use in multiple places. So rather than trying to have a gigantic draw event, what I'm going to do is break the code into pieces and just talk about drawing objects, for example. These functions, notice they all say void here. What that means is that they're not giving you back an answer. Random gives you back an answer. It gives you back the number that it chose. But drawing setup and drawing objects is not actually going to give back an answer. It's just going to execute some code. So that's why it's void there. So drawing objects, what am I going to do? Well, I want to draw a bunch of circles on the screen for where these things are. So to begin with, I should probably set my background so that when I draw it, it kind of clears the screen. And it turns out that if you just want black, you just do 0. So basically the absence of all the other colors. In all of these codes, if you're using just one argument, it's talking about grayscale, like where are you on the background between black and white. You can also use red, green, and blue values as well, or hexadecimal codes if you're used to those, which are secretly also red, green, and blue values. And by combining those, you can actually create any color you like. So there's the background. Next, I think what I'm going to do is set the color I'm going to draw with to be white. So I'm going to draw white circles on a black background. So now the last thing I need to do is actually go through all of my circles and draw them. So once again, I'm going to use a for loop. By the way, this integer a only lives within this block here, and then it goes away completely. So I can use the name a again. So this is actually creating a new one down here that will only live as long as this for loop. So that's why I'm allowed to use those names over and over again. So I'm going to walk through all my objects again. I'm going to have to worry about objects later on that are 0 mass, because that's how I'm going to remove them from the screen. So I'm going to have this if statement. What it does is it says, all right, check to see if this mass is 0. And exclamation point equals means if it is not 0, we're going to do something. So this is a way of allowing your code to make a choice. Now initially, all of our things are going to be between 1 and 20, so this shouldn't be the case at the beginning. But later on, when we have a collision, the way I'm going to signify that an object has gone away is I'm going to change its mass to be 0. All right. So I'm going to draw an ellipse, which is a circle, could be oblong. In my case, I'm going to make it an actual circle. And I'm going to use the x coordinate. Now, you remember this is a table, right? X coordinates are. It's an array. So that means I'm going to draw the 0 spot in the table, then the 1 spot in the table, then the 2 spot in the table, and so on. Because this is going to be a number, and then it's going to go look up in the table which row that is. Similar thing for the y coordinate. And then I need to have the height and the width. Well, I mentioned earlier that the radius is going to be the mass, well, the mass is the radius squared. So if I want to take the mass and get the radius back out, I'm going to do the square root of this. So this part of so this is the x spot that you're going to draw an ellipse, the y spot of the ellipse, and this is going to be the width, and then we're going to have another one which is the height. So if we take the square root of the mass, this is a function which returns a square root, that'll give me the radius. Now, I want my width though, so I actually want the diameter, so I need to multiply this by 2. This little asterisk is how you say times, and by the way, the forward slash is how you say divide. So that's the width. And then the height is also the radius times 2. All right, what does that look like? So for this to actually work, one of the things I'm going to do is, my draw event currently has nothing in it but notes. To actually run this code, I actually have to tell it to run that command. The way you run it, this is called calling the function, is you actually just use the name of it. And if there's anything in the parentheses, that would go here. Since I don't have anything in the parentheses, I'm just going to do this. Hey look, circles on a black background. Coolest thing ever. Now if you're in the processing app, if you had any errors in the code, it would show up at the bottom in the console. Unfortunately, in the JavaScript version, it just stops running. So you're going to have to watch out for that. So for example, if I show the console here and try running it, notice that it says that I have an error, though it doesn't give me much information. So that was just because I had mismatched parentheses. This parenthesis did not match this one.